I'm Crafty Rose. Welcome back to Crafty Rose. Today we're going to be making another Sea Life Father's Day card. This time I'm going to use different colors as I did on this card. For this video, you're going to need 4 different cardstocks, your Stampin' Ink, 4 different hole punchers, your die-cut foam square, scissors, glue, an envelope. You're also going to need your cutting board and your die cut machine. First off, we're going to start cutting out our card. You can cut 2 cards at a time, or do 1. I'm doing 2. You want to put your envelope on the card stock and feed it through your cutter. Then you want to measure out how big you want the card. The card has to be smaller than the envelope. So before you start cutting, remove the envelope. And then you cut. Next step is you fold your cards. Now here you only want to cut 1 card at a time, so you don't mismeasure your second card. What I like to do is place 1 card in first, then grab the second card and place it right beside it so you can cut 2 cards out. So you want to repeat the step with the envelope, place it on the card, right up against the folded side, put it in your cutter, measure out how big you want it, remove the envelope, and place the second card next to it. And line that one up. And then you just cut it. And there you have your 2 cards cut. Next, you want to move over to your die cut machine. You want to use your scrap pieces. Make your sandwich between your 2 boards. Place your cutter down. And just feed it through your machine. Some machines are electric, so you only have to push it through and then it does work for you. But like the one I have, you got to crank it yourself. Here I'm going to be cutting out more than 1, so I have some in stock. And what I should have done was gone right to the edge of the page. But I didn't. You will have pieces stuck in between. Both your cutter and your cutout. Next you want to do the second color you're going to be doing for your card. you want to repeat the sandwich making step for each time you want to use a cutout. I like feeding through the machine twice so I know for sure it's cut. Because not all the time it will cut all the way through. You can use scrap pieces for this, or you can just grab cardstock and cut it down to the size of the boards. I usually cut pieces of cardstock beforehand, so I have a stack on hand. That way I'm not always wasting time cutting. And I do use my scrap most of the time too. As you can tell, some pieces did stick inside your cutout. Now for the bottom pieces, they're a little difficult to get out. So when you pull them out, you want to be extra careful so you don't rip the edges, as the edges are not that thick. They are a thin line. So you want to do it carefully. I have done some where I accidentally ripped off the bottom corner of it. And that's why most of the time I feed my die cut through the machine twice. Sometimes I will do it 3 or 4 times. And there you have your lighthouses done and ready to be glued to a card. Your scraps, you can either toss them or you can keep them and glue them on cards. Next, you want to grab scrap pieces of paper, or you can cut up pieces and feed them through your hole punches. You're going to be using 4 different ones. You have one hole punch is 2 squares, and then you have your 3 small ones, but for this card they're going to be sea animals. You don't have to do sea animals. You can do anything you want. Whatever you have on hand you can use, or you don't have to use them, but I'm going to. So you want to feed them through your hole punch and just start punching away on pieces of paper. I hole punch out extra every time, so I know I have them on hand when I make the next card. You will need 3 big squares and 3 small squares. You want to make sure when you hole punch out your squares that you are using paper that will fit the hole punch. See, with this big one, you have lines on the edge of your hole punch, so you know exactly how far you need to go with the paper. So as you can tell, right here, 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 and here, that's how thick a wide piece of paper you need for this hole punch. Here you have your squares made. Now for these smaller hole punches, paper like this will fit. For these ones, you only need one of each, but I'm going to hole punch a few. So for these small ones, your paper might get stuck in them, or you might accidentally hole punch some in the same spot. Your hole punch collections will collect on the bottom of your hole punch. You just open it up and pour them out. I like to pour them out with each color I'm doing. That way, when it comes to gluing them down to the card, I don't have to dig, but in the future, I will have to dig to make the future cards, as they are all will be in the same container. Because I will dump the lid, because I lay them down on top on the lid, so I can just grab them, and then when I'm finished, and then I'll dump the lid inside. The more you use your hole punches, sometimes they will get harder to use later on because you're constantly using them, so the spring will wear out in them. Like these hole punches, I bought them secondhand, so I really don't know how old they are or how well they use. I'm slowly going through them all to use them. At some point they will all be used, and I will have cutouts of all of them. Like what I like to do is when I do a new cutout, I will tape one cutout to the edge of the container so that I know what's in that container. Like this one, it is a little hard to do. I have some where I will literally have to tug at the paper to get it unstuck. And I'm sure over time, after using them, you will get the hang of tucking the papers out and everything. I have 2 kits of these, and then I have some where they weren't bought in kits. They were just single hole punches. And then I have ones like this one that were given to me. And there you have all 3 of your sea life animals and your squares all ready to be glued onto your cards. So next you want to grab your card that you pre-cut . And then you want to start placing your layout. So you will need 3 big squares, 3 small squares. As you can tell, the green one I cut just enough out. But I'm pretty sure I have some in my containers already. And then you can either glue your squares together, or you can use your foam squares and have them pop out. I'm going to be popping mine out. So you want to put 4 foam squares, 1 in each corner, or you can just do 1 foam square and put it in the middle. I'm going to be changing this card up a little and just put the square down in the bottom corner instead of in the middle. Just for a change. You want to repeat the step 3 times on each card. As I'm sitting here putting foam on the back of the squares and putting them together, I decided I'm going to also cut out another piece of paper and just have it the length of the card and have it a little wider than the squares. So the squares will pop out a little better. Because as you can tell, with me putting them in the corners, they blend in with the card itself, so that it won't be as nice of a look. Because you see the blue, and then you see the green. You really don't see how it pops up unless you look at the top of the green. So I'm going to use a third color on these cards. So I'm going to repunch out the animals as well. That way that color will also be brought out on the squares. Here you have your squares ready to be glued down. So you're going to want to go back to your cutter, unlock your cutter, most cutters lock, and then line up your paper against your card. As you can tell, the paper I choose that I already have cut out is not long enough. So you want to go to where your cardstock is and find that color. So here's the full sheet that I have found. So I'm going to lay my card on top. Then you want to line it up with where your cutter cuts. And then just cut it. Now you could cut your card twice, or you can fold it in half. That way, when you cut it, you will have two pieces of the same length. So you want to put your square on top so you know where exactly you want to cut it and how much bigger you want to go with it. I'm just going to end up lining mine up with the edge of my cutting board, the gray piece, not the clear piece. And there you have two pieces. So now you're going to want to cut out your animals again. Or you can just use the ones you already have cut out and stick with those colors. As you can tell, your paper got stuck. You just want to play around with it. Sometimes you'll rip the paper, just like that, and then it's easier to get out. Because your cutouts will get stuck sometimes on the inside. Usually depends how old the cutters are. Sorry for the squeak in my table. It only seems to squeak when my mom or I are around, not when my dad's around. See, with how bigger the sheets are, you can possibly get more cuttings out of them, or you can use 2 cutters on 1 sheet. Now it's time to start gluing and putting your card together. So first you want to glue down your long piece of cardstock. This is what your card will look like with that piece on. What you could also do is, what I might do with this card is grab one of your scissors that has an edge on it and just cut it along the edge of the piece of paper. You can go all the way along the edge, but I'm only going to do the one side. You want to do it for both cards. I was going to make the card this way instead of this way, but my lighthouse is too big to go this way, which is fine. So you want to grab your glue. Grab your cardstock and just glue it. And then you just want to place it where you want it on your card. You can make both cards at once, or you can do one at a time. I like doing both at a time. That way they have the exact same layout. You don't have to do the 3 sea life creatures I picked out. You can do any one you want. You don't even have to do sea life theme. You can either glue your squares down, or you can have them pop up with foam squares. I'm gluing mine down. I'm starting with the bottom square, then the top square, then I'll glue down the middle square. Next, you want to glue down your animals. You can glue them down in any order you like. I run this card in black and white, but not the exact same layout, a little different. That card I only did black and white, and I put the squares in the middle, and I did not do the third color. I will post down below the link to my store and my Facebook page so you can see my other cards I've made and you can order them. I'm only putting down one fish in each square. You can put down as many as you want. Next, you want to glue down your lighthouse. You could put your lighthouse off to the edge of the card. You can put the lighthouse anywhere you want. You can put your squares anywhere you want. You can change the layout to any design you want it to have your layout. The next, you want to grab your stamp, ink it, and place it on your card. What I might do is I might grab another piece of cardstock, put it on there, and then just cut it out. So I'm going to use these scissors again just to trim off the edges of the one side for now of the cardstock. And just stamp down my stamp. For the stamp, I'm using a Happy Father's Day stamp. As Father's Day is coming up. I also just pre-cut these, pre-stamp them. That way I have some on hand when I'm trying to do a quick card, a last minute card. Or when I want to make multiples. That way I always have some on hand. You always want to make sure once you're done using your stamp to clean your stamp off. I normally, if I'm going to use the same ink, I will let my stamp sit aside for a little bit. And just let it dry. I'm going to use the same ink, so then when I'm actually done with the stamp, that's when I will clean it off. So here, as you can tell, I will have to put an extra layer of foam squares on the back, so it pops up above the square. You don't have to do all the corners. You gotta do the corners that were actually needed. So in this case, I believe 3 of the corners are going to need it. The one bottom corner won't. You can use the foam squares, or you can get a roll of foam tape. That way you have the whole thing covered in foam and not just the corners. Like, the bigger the piece you use, the more squares you want to put on it. In this case, I also want to put one down in the middle. And there you have your card. You guys are more than welcome to leave questions down in the comments below, and I will answer them on a question and answer video. Please, guys, don't be shy asking questions. I will answer most of them. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next week.